Hello everyone, welcome to InfoComm 2017. We're here once again on the NEC Display Solutions stand. That's stand number 1600. Here at the end of the day, day one, we're very excited to have with us Rob Badenoch from TAD Associates. You're a consultant at TAD Associates. You've been on a couple of our NEC shows before.
Yep.
And Rob was kind enough to come over to London about a month ago and present at our Global Digital Signage Conference. So
thank you for having me.
We haven't seen you for about 3 or 4 weeks.
Been about 3 or 4 weeks, different continent, but it's great to be back.
Now you're talking again, we'll cover a little bit about what you do in a second, but you're talking tomorrow. This is the big thing we wanted to
tomorrow at the Center Stage event, which is this, to me, I think to InfoComm as well, a relatively new thing to have the...
Have you seen the Center Stage?
I have,
They've
just
gone
this
to
morning
town.
for the first
fantastic.
time. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's big plush couch seating.
It is unbelievably
good.
Folks
will be very easily able to fall asleep during my talk.
The international attendees will be asleep after 10 minutes.
Comfortable seating, exactly. Right, good for jet lag. But it's in the middle of the action. It's beautiful signage, and you stumble into it, I think, much more readily.
Yeah. What time are you on?
11:30 tomorrow morning. We're talking about the workplace. The subject is what doesn't work at work. And the goal is to talk about some of the emerging trends that we see in the industry that have mirrored the evolution of the workforce around the world.
Right.
From 100 years ago, when offices were demised by walls and doors, programs created by architects, that is now turned into ultimately offices that are whose programs are governed by applications. And so a space anymore is activated just by having a device that you can collaborate with. Next thing you know, maybe this table we're sitting at becomes a huddle room or a conference room or a collaboration space. And the millennial and post-millennial workforce that's coming into use of these offices, they're arriving in these facilities with expectations that seating and furnishings and everything should be able to accommodate.
I also read something in, I think it was the International New York Times recently, about office spaces in Silicon Valley and New York, where young people who maybe can't afford big apartments are spending more time at the office.
That's right.
And so it's important that the evening they have a space where they can sit
and you just gave me a thought too that occurred to me only in part earlier this morning, which is that the workplace transition that has happened with generational progression is to have the office feel more like the home in that you no longer have spaces that are purposed just for single functions like you do in the home, limited to the home. We now have that in the office. We have lounges, we have open plan seating, and there are no individual desks anymore. And supposedly the new generation doesn't care about having a potted plant that can go here with the picture of their kid here.
Correct.
They care about being able to go anywhere and with their own device activate any space into their collaboration zone. That's exactly what we'll be talking about.
So that leads us nicely into what TAD Associates do, because when we first met, there was a massive crossover with people that we talk to and things that we do, and all these big clients that you've got.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I don't know if you're allowed to mention all the clients.
Oh, sure.
But
so tomorrow morning I'm co-presenting with Aaron Jameson, operations manager at Citi. And this is a client with whom we have a multi-year retainer arrangement. We've engaged with them and in support of their own expertise across over 100 projects around the world. And we're working to provide expertise, institutional memory, and standards development that keeps pace with these changes in the workforce. And then we're learning in turn from Aaron and his staff as to how to do a better job managing the expectations of these folks that are coming into the facilities. The subject of the talk is how much anymore the issues of design of the workplace have to do with people and not technology. The thing I haven't talked to you about yet here is how awesome all of this stuff is that we're seeing at this show. And it's becoming less of a subject of conversation because the technology is becoming so much better at integrating with itself and with other surrounding systems. So we're turning the conversation to the people. We're starting to call it the PostDigital Era, although that's me repurposing a phrase from another world, where we are not concerned anymore with the boxes working well together. That problem's been solved by the likes of Cisco and Apple and Google and Crestron and NEC. We're concerned now with managing the expectations of the incoming workforce and accommodating expectations of theirs that come from the home or that come from outside the workplace that are from unrelated industries, consumer electronics, entertainment, media, which is, again, a great way to sort of connect with DOH.
Now we know that you do lots of shows. You've been doing InfoComm lots of times, but you also do the CES, you do AES.
Occasionally CES, AES every year, yes. Audio Engineering Society is a great show. It's a different crowd. Audio engineering is another
Do you think that the AV industry is learning? I know you do NAB, but do you think the AV industry is learning enough from people like you?
It's the other way around in my opinion, absolutely. Or I should say, as I consider myself part of the AV industry, and I would say the AV industry should be concerned to be learning enough from the end users that we support and serve.
Right, okay,
And
that's interesting.
with these technologies, I mean, one of the catchphrases I've sort of fallen into is that the bricks and mortar decisions of how we build buildings are increasingly impacted by the devices in our pockets. Mobile devices, laptops, tablets, these things, as I said earlier, that form the only experience of a collaboration environment require wireless access, which requires cabling and infrastructure and telecommunications closet space and data center space inside of buildings. So we should be really darn concerned to understand what the users of these devices are expecting out of them in the facilities that we construct.
Right.
And so I see it as first for us to learn from our clients as to what their applications and expectations are, and then we can pick and choose from our expertise and grow it to meet their needs.
Okay.
That's my feeling as a consultant, which is also an attempt to remain humble in the face of this onslaught of continual technological development that none of us can predict. None of us saw Facebook coming.
No.
But with the admission that we are riding the wave with our clients, with the understanding that with clients like Aaron, with whom I'm speaking tomorrow, it's not about leading them and giving them expertise. In many cases, it's about linking arms with them and jumping over the cliff together. And that's part of the retainer agreement, and that's part of TAD's embedded arrangement with our clients, to work across many years and to work beyond the bounds of any one built environment.
Now, you also in New York with TAD Associates, you've been lucky enough to work on some of the most prestigious buildings that have gone up in New York in the last couple of years, I guess, Hudson Yards and the World Trade Center.
Yeah, many properties at Hudson Yards, many properties centered around broadcast centers and Avenue of the Americas and Rockefeller Center. A long list of fantastic projects and clients that I'm not always allowed to go into.
Indeed.
Yeah,
and some of the retail stores that some people have mentioned today, I think, as well.
Absolutely. And retail is another example of a user base and a clientele that challenges us to not only keep pace, but to push the envelope. And the thing that I say now that's happening more than has ever happened before is I'll do what I think is a quite good job presenting technological options for a program element. And what happens more and more is the client returns and says, that's great, what else have you got?
Really?
And so I'm now more concerned than ever to extract all the value I can out of InfoComm and the other shows.
Okay.
Yeah.
You find CES must be pretty useful as well.
Yeah, based on everything I've just said, I would have to agree there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that the NEC stand here has got today, of course, is lots of LED, and that's becoming more ubiquitous and cheaper and better resolution. But the collaboration spaces are the thing that they've really focused on, and the huddle rooms.
And collaboration spaces that make use of LED.
Right. That was sort of new to me, maybe even 9 months ago. I mean, I had to do some research when we were doing a similar program in Amsterdam for NEC. And Huddle, there was a company called Huddle I think, which is, confused me, but the whole Huddle space collaboration. And then I met you in New York in March, and we also got talking about the whole thing. It seems to have come upon us quite quickly.
Yeah, it has.
It has, it wasn't just me.
Yeah, and I think of it as the very fast progress of mobile devices. Everybody turns around, and next thing you know, everyone on the train, everyone in the office has a smartphone, a tablet, a laptop. Every individual now has 3 Wi-Fi connections, not 1 or 0.
Yes.
And so I see that growth as being part of the consumer electronics world. And also, not quite so rapidly, but I see the huddle room and phone room and increased prevalence of conference rooms to be a response to the acoustical dilemma of the increasing popularity of open plan offices. And so that's just the reality of somebody who is benefiting from this new paradigm of hot desking and having all of your environment adapt anywhere in the office facility as it would in your home, but then you need to have a conversation with your doctor or your wife or your child at school, and you got to find a private
It's funny
space.
what you say. I mean, the two things. One was, it's nice when you go, I go to certain hotels and they ask you how many devices you've got, and you almost get a token for each device, which I think is good. They don't assume that it's just one, maybe for you or a couple or the whole family.
Well, you've just, not to interrupt, but you've just reminded me of a really important element of what TAD is doing now, which is when we talk about user experience design, it's about what happens, like at Hudson Yards, for example, when you walk into Building 55 and you badge into the building as a visitor. The building management system knows you're a visitor, not an employee, not a contractor. Perhaps you're a VIP.
Yeah.
The Wi-Fi code that you're granted then gives you access to those rooms with wireless video connections that you've reserved in advance, or if you wish to use them ad hoc, makes the connection based on not any control system up on the 60th floor, but rather in the turnstiles as you enter at the ground level at Hudson Yards. So that connection between these completely different scopes of work is something we pride ourselves on at TAD Associates. And we call that the experience design, and we call that responding to the end user's demand why is it that I get a barcode on my screen for my boarding pass on the airplane, but I still have to have a printed receipt for the Wi-Fi code when I go into this state-of-the-art facility that has $1 million conferencing and collaboration systems. So we're responding to that demand by making these connections.
I was going to also say, interesting in the hotel space, where some hotels are now allowing you to take your Netflix or Hulu account in with you.
And that's exactly and the corollary to that is the hotel guest no longer cares about the video on demand system built into the hotel.
Yeah.
That's exactly the case. It's the distillation of the user experience down to your own device that's in your pocket or in your bag. Your own Netflix, by virtue of your own identity as a Netflix user, is the most important environment for the hotel to convey. And so I've worked a lot in hospitality and projects from Four Seasons to et cetera. And they're not concerned anymore to have state of the art. They're concerned to have adaptable.
Right.
They're not concerned to have something that works perfectly on day one. They're concerned to have something that works perfectly also on day 1001. Because none of us can predict what will replace Netflix as the predominant media platform, if anything.
Right.
And we just have to adapt to it.
I was saying to a conference organizer yesterday that I don't think there's been a better time to be in this industry. It's one of the most exciting times ever.
I agree.
One of the things that I think we need as an industry, I think we need a few more people like yourself who can stand up and actually say why it's exciting. I don't think we have enough presentations.
I appreciate that.
There's a lot, maybe too much doom and gloom about. This is brilliant. The next 5 years is going to be fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the reasons why I joined TAD Associates, was to live in a world where my design sensibilities are restricted only to those disciplines that traditionally are forming A and V, audio and video, would leave me vulnerable to commoditization. We see all around us, actually right across the way, a widget that you can buy literally at a retail store, place it on your table, and you will wirelessly have a collaboration endpoint that handles all of the audio. What place is there for an audiovisual designer when there's nothing left to integrate into the room?
Right.
And of course the answer is that audiovisual designer needs to grow and evolve, and I've had to learn, as demanded by my own clients and my associates in the industry, to do that other thing, that experience design, that connectivity, that bit about the turnstile at the ground floor, connecting to the conference room, and then not lose sight of those other spaces that remain complex, like large auditoriums and theaters, broadcast facilities. We have a tremendous amount of broadcast work, so that always remains. But I could go on and on.
Rob, you're incredibly humble because you're one of the most intelligent people we've ever met. And guys,
you say that to everyone.
We said that to you. Tomorrow, 11:30, we're going to go and listen to you on the center stage, 11:30.
Awesome. Thank
Rob,
you.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much.